Ready? All right, if you would turn to 1 Samuel chapter 14. We'll be starting in verse 24 tonight. If you remember, we're studying about, or the title of our series is Israel Wants a King, and they got a king, King Saul. Sometimes this is a prime example of how sometimes we need to be careful what we ask for, because sometimes we get what we want, or get what we ask for, but it's not what we want. If you know what I'm saying, it's sometimes it's not what we expected. Sometimes we see that today in politics. Sometimes we vote for somebody thinking that they're going to turn out to be good in that office, whatever office it is, local or state or federal, whichever, and then they wind up doing just the opposite. We've all seen that happens. And of course with King Saul, he turned out to be not the man that they expected. He was at first, in the beginning. Things looked promising, and that's where we've been so far. But remember the one time where we read about how he, instead of waiting for Samuel to show up, he offered a sacrifice. He disobeyed God's orders as far as waiting on the man of God, the prophet, to come before offering a sacrifice. And he didn't think anything about it. It's kind of like modern religion. They do things that they think are holy and righteous, and in reality it's against what God expects from his people. So that's kind of how Saul acts. He does things that are contrary to God's commands oftentimes, and we're seeing more and more of that as we go through, and we'll see more of that tonight. In the section we're going to read tonight, and I don't know if we'll get through the rest of the chapter or not. This is a fairly long chapter, so we probably not. But mostly this is about an oath that Saul made. We're warned about oaths in the Scripture. God tells us not to make them. Because why? Because usually with man, he can't keep an oath. and it winds up getting us in trouble. And that happens to Saul, doesn't it? In this story. We see it all throughout the history of the nation of Israel in the Old Testament. They had a commandment with God. That's a type of oath. They couldn't keep it. God did, but they couldn't. In this case, this is a little bit different situation with Saul. He makes an oath with the people of Israel, and thinking that it's a godly oath, and it's not. So let's start in 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 24. The men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had adjured the people, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food until evening, that I may be avenged on mine enemies. So none of the people tasted any food. So they went a whole day. They've been fighting. They're tired, they're hungry, they're thirsty. He makes an oath here. The man that eats any food before evening time, before supper, in other words, is cursed. There's going to be consequences. He doesn't tell us what those consequences would be, but in their day and time, it might be death. So none of the people, none of them, ate anything. And all they of the land came to a wood, and there was honey upon the ground. Boy, that sounds good, don't it? Come into the forest, and there's some wild honey. And you've been fighting a battle, and what's honey good for? It rejuvenates you, doesn't it? It's a sweet. It's a wholesome food. Honey's if you've ever studied anything about honey, it's supposedly, they say, is the perfect food. It has everything in it that the human body could survive on. And when the people were coming to the wood, behold, the honey dropped. But no man put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. So the honey was easy to get to. It was provided for them. And yet they feared the oath that Saul made. But Jonathan, here's Jonathan again, Saul's son, who has been his right-hand man through all this. He's been the one that Saul trusted with part of the army in the beginning of the battles. He's also the one who, without Saul's permission, went out and, remember last time we looked at where he went out and attacked a garrison of Philistines and stirred up a bunch of trouble with them, and the Philistines, the whole army come after them, and that's the battle they've been fighting up until now. They've whipped the Philistine army, a much mightier army than they are. They've whipped them. They're tired and hungry. But Jonathan heard not when his father charged the people with the oath. Jonathan doesn't know anything about the oath. He's innocent. But here's the problem. Somebody should have told him, right? That's what we would think. And I'm sure that was Saul's thinking. If somebody doesn't hear or is not here to hear the oath, the rest of you guys better tell him. Well, nobody's told him. But Jonathan heard not when his father charged the people with the oath. Wherefore he put forth the end of the rod that was in his hand, and dipped it in a honeycomb, and put his hand to his mouth, and his eyes were enlightened. Now that's nothing. Don't go Pentecostal on us here and think that this is some magical something that's happened to him here. It's not. When it says enlightened here, it just means that he was refreshed. His eyes were open. You know how when you get extremely tired, your eyes get tired? This was the case here. And if you eat something that's rejuvenating, your eyesight clears up. Basically, that's what that would be a good explanation for what's happened here. His eyes were enlightened. He was rejuvenated. Then answered one of the people and said, Thy father straitly charged the people with an oath, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food this day. And the people were faint. They were like, oh no, Jonathan's going to be killed now. His father's going to kill him for this. Then said Jonathan, My father hath troubled the land. Jonathan doesn't agree with it, does he? See, I pray you, how mine eyes have been enlightened, because I tasted a little of this honey. He didn't eat a lot of it. He wasn't a glutton about it. He just ate a little bit, just enough to give him just a little refreshment. That's all. And he doesn't see anything wrong with it. The problem is Saul made an oath that was unnecessary. We don't even know, really, we don't see why Saul even made the oath. It was ridiculous. It was just, it's almost like it's more of him trying to control things. I'm the boss, y'all are going to do what I say, basically. Whether it's right or wrong, you're going to do it. And we see that today with rulers around the world. You get someone in power, and the power gets to their head, as we say. And we're going to do it my way, or we're not going to do it at all. I'll kill you if you don't do it my way. So basically that's what Saul has done here. He's made a ridiculous demand on the people when it was unnecessary. And now his closest confidant, his closest kin, his son, his own son, who's his right-hand man, has broken the oath, unknowingly broken the oath. He didn't know about it until somebody told him after he had eaten. And Jonathan doesn't agree with his father. He says, How much more, if haply the people had eaten freely today of the spoil of their enemies which they found? For had there not been now a much greater slaughter among the Philistines? So remember, they slew the Philistines. There was a great slaughter there. There was spoils of war. In other words, whatever the Philistines had, they had free reign of. And he says, and they smote the Philistines that day from Michmash to Ajalon, and the people were very faint. And the people flew upon the spoil. They took sheep and oxen and calves and slew them on the ground, and the people did eat them with the blood. Now, of course, today we think that's kind of sickening. Nobody wants to even think about eating blood today. Used to, it was in certain places, and maybe it still is, it was a delicacy. But God told his people not to eat the blood. And here they do. They've then in verse 33 it says, Then they told Saul, saying, Behold, the people sin against the Lord, in that they eat with the blood. And he said, Ye have transgressed. Roll a great stone unto me this day. And Saul said, Disperse yourselves among the people, and say unto them, Bring me hither every man his ox, and every man his sheep, and slay them here, and eat. And sin not against the Lord in eating with the blood. And all the people brought every man his ox with him that night, and slew them there. And Saul built an altar unto the Lord. The same was the first altar that he built unto the Lord. Now notice Saul built the altar here. Samuel's not there, at least not yet. Saul makes this order. The people have gathered the spoils from the Philistines, everything you could think of to eat, all the livestock that they had. But they messed up. They ate of the blood. They didn't waste anything, in other words. But God had already told them in the law not to eat of the blood. It was a curse to eat of the blood. And Saul tells them to bring the animals here to me, and sin not against the Lord. We're going to do this right, in other words. Well, not necessarily right, but that's what he was thinking. And Saul said, Let us go down after the Philistines by night, and spoil them until the morning light, and let us not leave a man of them. And they said, Do whatsoever seemeth good unto thee. Then said the priest, Let us draw near hither unto God. And so Saul, his plan is, we're going to go harass the Philistines some more. Let's go down there at night and steal everything they got. And we'll kill all their men. And the people said, Do whatever you think's right. Basically, we'll follow you to the death. Do whatever you think's right. We'll follow you. But what do the priests say? Let us draw near hither. Let's counsel with the Lord first. Let's see what God has to say about this before you go do that. And Saul asked counsel of God. Shall I go down after the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into the hand of Israel? But he answered him not that day. He prayed to God, and God didn't answer. And Saul said, Draw ye near hither all the chief of the people, and I'll see wherein this sin hath been this day. So Saul is concerned that because they ate of the blood, and they have sinned against God because of this, that this is why he's not getting an answer from the Lord on whether he needs to go and attack the Philistines again. For as the Lord liveth, which saveth Israel, though it be in Jonathan my son, he shall surely die. But there was not a man among all the people that answered him. So basically he had them bring, he says, all the chief of the people, in other words, the elders of the tribes, and they discussed this sin that's happened. He's not got an answer from the Lord yet. He tells them, he says, you know, if this oath was like, it was an oath like to, almost like swearing on a Bible, you know, you do when you go to jury duty or you go to court, or politicians do when they take an oath of office. Supposedly he thought he had made an oath unto God. And even though it was, or that's what he thought, his son Jonathan had broken the oath, and he said he's got to die. It's that simple. But none of the men, none of the elders of the tribes answered him. They didn't know what to say. Then said he unto all Israel, Be ye on one side, and I and Jonathan my son will be on the other side. And the people said unto Saul, Do what seemeth good unto thee. He's not getting any much godly counsel out of this group, is he? Basically, they're saying, whatever you think's right, just do it. You know, we don't care. Therefore Saul said unto the Lord, God of Israel, Give a perfect lot. And Saul and Jonathan were taken, but the people escaped. So they're I don't know if they're not necessarily betting like we think of as a lot, but they're drawing straws. In other words, this would be a way to put this, I guess. And the people of Israel got out of it, but Saul and Jonathan drew the short straws. In other words, they got picked. Therefore Saul and Saul said, Cast lots between me and Jonathan, my son. And Jonathan was taken. So Jonathan got picked to die. That was the point of casting the lots, was to see who was going to die for the sin that had happened. And Jonathan gets picked. Then Saul said to Jonathan, Tell me what thou hast done. And Jonathan told him and said, I did but taste a little honey with the end of the rod that was in mine hand, and lo, I must die. And Saul answered, God do so and more also, for thou shalt surely die, Jonathan. And the people said unto Saul, Shall Jonathan die, who hath wrought this great salvation to Israel? God forbid. As the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair of his head fall to the ground, for he hath wrought with God this day. So the people rescued Jonathan, that he died not. So Saul is willing to follow through with the oath, with the breaking of the oath, the punishment of it, which was someone had to die. Whoever broke the oath had to die. That was the curse. But the people finally stepped up and said, no. Jonathan is the one who God has used today to fight these battles. He's the one that, remember Jonathan and his armor bearer? They went down there and whooped up on the garrison by themselves, over 20 men, and then were taking on the rest of the army when the nation of Israel saw what was going on, and they came to their rescue. And the Lord handed the Philistines to them that day. Israel is looking at this as God's on the side of Jonathan. Now, in closing, like I said, we're not going to get through the rest of this chapter. Well, we might. There's not that much left. I thought there would be more, but we'll see where we go. Verse 46, Then Saul went up from following the Philistines, and the Philistines went to their own place. So they broke camp, both sides, and went back home. That's it. End of story. End of this part of the story. But Saul is a warmonger. He's a warring king. He's he can't help himself. He's, for whatever reason, he thinks he's got to be out on the battlefield all the time. And so that's what we see in the rest of this chapter. Saul took the kingdom over Israel and fought against all his enemies on every side, against Moab, and against the children of Ammon, and against Edom, and against the kings of Zobah, and against the Philistines, and whitherso he turned himself, he vexed them. He sounds like a very angry man, doesn't he? And maybe it's because the people turned their back on him when it came to Jonathan. They didn't follow through, or wouldn't let him follow through with killing Jonathan, even though Jonathan broke the oath. But it appears as though, because we jump right into this where he goes and all of a sudden he just goes and attacks everybody around him. And he gathered an host and smote the Amalekites and delivered Israel out of the hands of them that spoiled them. Now the sons of Saul were Jonathan and Ishui and Melchishua, and the names of his two daughters were these: the name of the firstborn, Merib, and the name of the younger, Michael. And the name of Saul's wife was Ahinoam, the daughter of Ahimaaz, and the name of the captain of his host was Abner, the son of Ner, Saul's uncle. And Kish was the father of Saul, and Ner, the father of Abner, was the son of Abiel. And there was sore war against the Philistines all the days of Saul. And when Saul saw any strong man or any valiant man, he took him unto him. In other words, we have a little bit of Saul's lineage here, just in his family, but we see Saul, for the whole time he's king, is one constant war, one war after another, one battle after another. And what does he do? Well, while he's out there fighting, if he sees a man who's a valiant warrior, what's he do? He brings him to himself. He makes him part of his private army, his private troops there, and they go on and they fight with Saul, directly with Saul. They're his confidants and his elite force. Now, we're going to stop there. Next time in chapter 15, we'll see where Samuel comes back on the scene, and Saul is rejected as king. He's finally told it, hey, you're not the guy the Lord wanted. You know, you're here for a short time, but you're not going to be the long-term king of Israel. His reign was very short-lived, and Samuel has to break the news to him that it's going to be somebody else, younger. So we'll stop there.